Hey everyone, welcome to Quasi Astrology. My name's Sam, and today we'll be expounding on the difference between Sidereal astrology and Western astrology. Why am I talking now like this? Well, I just thought it would add a little bit of ambience to the situation. And I hope you're all doing alright and are not being driven around the bend by the current predicament that the globe is finding itself in. It's pretty hectic pretty much everywhere except here in South Africa. And is that because we don't have any issues yet? No, we have a lot of issues here. But does it matter to us? Not quite. So, whilst I hope you're all doing alright and you're surviving, you're making your moves, you're going the right way and in the right direction, I thought it would be a good time to address how you should use sidereal astrology and how you should use Western astrology. What's the difference? And before I do that, in case you don't know, I thought it would be a good idea to link the sidereal calculator and Western calculator down below so you can find your charts and maybe compare them during this time or during after this little dissertation or expoundation or whatever words I'm trying to use from a different nation. But but I really hope that you can get an idea of the differences just by looking at it, and then you can watch this, or you should watch this first and then go and look at that. And I hope it helps you out. So, cool. Western versus Vedic astrology. Which one is best? Which one will give you the most information? Which one will provide you with the real gritty stuff that you need to understand and really interpret into a chart to give somebody the full picture of what they're trying to acquire or extract from that chart? To start off, I think you have to understand that Vedic astrology is 10,000 years old. 10 centuries has gone into a set of books or holy books in India called the Vedas. Now, Western astrology is only about 1,000 to 5,000, 1,000 to 2,000, 1,000 to 2,000 years old. And you can really see when you're using both of these, or if you get into both of them, the difference in amount of information and interpretation in each chart and each discipline. So one might give you a specific interpretation, and then you go to the other, you have another interpretation, and that also comes down to the mythology behind each discipline. As you can imagine, the Vedas, with 10,000 years or 10 centuries behind it, has a lot more information to quantify and crunch in, and a lot more ways to go about interpreting things. However, it is very strict and it's very straightforward, and it likes to use the literal interpretations a lot of the time out of the Vedas, right? Whereas Western astrology, because it's newer and it doesn't have as much of as much mythology in it or wrapped up into it, you can actually use it quite easily. In fact, it's one of the disciplines that I suggest always to start off with, because it really gives you the grounding, and then you can go into Vedic astrology and you'll notice immediately the difference and change in tempo and information. What else? The way we interpret it is Vedic astrology uses something that I'd like to term as space-time. Space-time is predominantly based on the planetary and luminous bodies being the moon and the sun, and their positions in space. So when we look at a chart, we don't just look at the chart, we also look at where the sun was, or where the Mars was, or Venus, and where it was in space at that time. Now, it's accurate, it's to the point, there's no mixing up any situation here. We're trying to understand that it's A is in A and B is in B. So what happens in Western astrology, and I think anybody who's done geography in class will know, they basically use the cardinal points or the equinoxes, which is north and south and east and west, and they base it on the geographical location of where you were born. So, same geographical location of where you were born in Vedic astrology. However, like I said, A is in A, B is in B. Whereas because we use and work with the equinoxes in Western astrology, you have an event called precession slippage. And in precession slippage, what predominantly happens is sometimes it's not always the case that A is in A, but sometimes A will be in B. So just keep that in mind. You might have a case where in your chart you have a Cancer ascendant, but in your Western chart you have a Cancer ascendant, but in your Sidereal or Vedic astrology, you'll have a different ascendant, possibly more likely in Gemini somewhere. Now, how do you go about interpreting that? Well, to me, I like to use it in this way, and a lot of time I must emphasize that you shouldn't put one discipline with another. You should always try and read them separately. However, if you really wanted to go as far as trying to say which one applies more to you and which one doesn't, then I think the best way to look at it is that Vedic astrology is masculine, it's accurate, it likes to take point to point, all right? It doesn't allow much for emotions and psychology, which I really love. I love the idea of psychology and the take on how we approach things. Western astrology, as I said, it's more feminine, it's more about how you feel, it's more about the reactions we have to things, how we respond to things. So Vedic astrology will paint out your life, the direction it's going to go, the events you're going to meet. It's very good at predicting and estimating the kind of aspects and issues and trials and tribulations you'll face in your life. And that's in Vedic astrology, whereas Western astrology is all about how, or at least how I like to see it or interpret it, is how you would respond to those types of challenges and tribulations. So like I said, you know, if you're directly going at some sort of challenge or ordeal, Vedic astrology will do a very good job in the chart of basically saying this is what it will be, this is the area in your life where it will generally come up in. Whereas Western astrology will say, well, this is how you will respond to that, you know, the way you'll try and deal with crisis and get out of the situation or achieve what it is you're trying to achieve in that area of your life. So that's just something I wanted to really bring in here, because I think it's very important to try and understand the difference between the two. There's so much more into each one. For example, a lot of the time you should also look at the societal construction. What I mean by that is the historical and social anthropology of that kind of society you're looking at. And so what I mean by that is a lot of the time Rahu, or what you call the lunar nodes, which are imaginary points on a chart, in Western astrology refer to them as the North Node, and the Vedic name is Rahu, and the South Node, and the Vedic name is Ketu. For example, these two can be quite malevolent in Vedic astrology, because a lot of the time Rahu in particular kind of pushes forth individuality, an individuality that goes against the norm, because Rahu is rebellious in Vedic astrology, whereas in Western astrology, to be an individual, to be who you are, you know, especially in Western society, not astrology, sorry, to be who you are, a lot of the time is a good thing. It's a positive thing. It drives forth society, because you need the creatives, you need the independents to establish new trends and bring society forward with them. So in a country like India, where everything's dense, where everything is heavy, and you don't want people to be too individual because you want them to work with the group consciousness, Rahu and Ketu are seen as malevolent. Another thing is the way we look at the luminous bodies. That's the sun and the moon. In Vedic astrology, the moon is the most important luminous body in the chart, and in Western astrology, the sun is. And again, when you look at the climate of each individual geographical location, the sun was a terrible malevolent entity, because it really was hot in India. It's still very hot in India, but you get the idea. Whereas in Western astrology, the sun is welcomed. It's worshipped. It's appreciated, because it's so dark and murky and well, in today's day and age with climate change, who knows? But you get the idea. So I hope I really spelled that out for you on the differences and which one to use more and which one can give you the most information. I think both are really good And I think you should actually start off, if I were to suggest something, start off with Western astrology. Gives you the groundwork, easier to understand. But Vedic astrology gives you a lot more of the accurate takes and predictions and events in your life. And also, just another thing to bring in is the cultural differences between Western astrology and Eastern astrology, predominantly cultural anthropology. When you look at the differences, you'll notice that in Vedic astrology, the sun is seen as malevolent, whereas the sun in Western astrology is seen as benevolent. Now, when you think of the climatic conditions in each country, it actually makes a lot of sense. The sun was always present in India, and it was hot, and it was bothersome, and it made problems for pretty much everyone because they wanted to hide inside, away from it. Whereas in Western astrology, the sun was never there, and when it was glorious, it was wonderful, it was kind, it was caring. So I just want you to be aware of that. You know, you will see a lot of the time with the lunar nodes, which are mathematical points on a chart. They will be depicted as different, having different personalities and being seen in a different way. So Rahu, otherwise known as the North Node in Western astrology, Rahu in Vedic astrology will be seen as independent and obsessive, which can be a positive thing in Western society because you need the independence and the creatives and the people to step out of society and go on and push society forward. And so it's a positive thing, whereas in India, where there's dense population, it's hot, people can get really bothered really quickly by individuals who want to do their own thing. It's a negative thing. So always just keep that in mind, that there's a way of interpreting not only the chart, not only the times and the positions, and including precision slippage or not, but there's also a way of interpreting the planetary and luminous and node positions in your chart based on the cultural differences between the two. So like I said, you will have a case where the sun will be projected as a malevolent entity, whereas in Vedic astrology, whereas in Western astrology, it's a positive entity. So just always keep that in mind. Otherwise, I'm going to be making another video. I'm going back to my series, the third house and Gemini in the third house. Well, Gemini and the third house. So if you're interested in that, I'll drop a link, and it should pop up somewhere around the screen. And yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Cheers. Bye.